Hello everyone, welcome again to our online lesson. Our lesson for today is about integers. Now we all know that some students have difficulties in understanding the process or the operations when it comes to adding and subtracting integers, especially when those integers have unlike signs. Now in this video, I will be teaching you the easiest way to add and subtract unlike signs. Now before we proceed, I want you to take a look at these integers in our number line. Notice that the sign of each integers is on its left side here. Also on the negative integers, the sign should always be on the left side of the number. Now I want you to remember this one because as we go further with our lesson today, this is very useful. Again, remember, the sign of each number is located on its left side. Now let's have an example. Say we need to add 5 plus 5. Again, remember that the sign of each number is located on its left side. Now here, this 5 here does not have any sign. So if a number does not have any sign on its left side, the sign of that number will always be a positive number or sign. Now what's next? Let us separate the two numbers. Then we have here a positive 5 and a positive 5. Then if we have numbers with same sign, all we need to do is to add the two numbers. So we have 5 plus 5. Then just copy the sign of the two numbers, which is positive. Next, let's have another example here. 5 minus 5. Again, this 5 here does not have any sign on its left side, therefore this number is a positive number. Then let's separate the two numbers. So you have a positive 5 and a negative 5. So if we have two numbers with different signs, what we have to do is to subtract the two numbers. So we have 5 minus 5. Then the result is 0. Now we all know that 0 does not have any sign. Next, we have here negative 5, positive 4. Both number have a sign on its left side. So let's separate the two numbers. So we have now a negative 5 and a positive 4. If we have numbers with unlike sign, all we need to do is to subtract them together. So we have 5 minus 4 equals to 1. Now what about the sign of the result? All we need to do is to copy the sign of the biggest number. So we have 5 here is bigger than 4 and the sign of 5 is negative, therefore we just copy the sign of the biggest number. So we have negative 1. Next, we have 5 minus 4. Again, 5 does not have any sign on its left side, therefore this one is a positive number. Next, let's separate the two numbers. So you have positive 5 and negative 4. We have two unlike sign number. So what do we have to do? Subtract them together. So you have 5 minus 4. The result is 1. Since 5 is bigger than 4 and the sign of 5 is positive, therefore the sign here should be positive. Now, as you can see here, we tend to eliminate the rules that we know when it comes to addition and subtraction of integers. So what we do basically here is to separate the two numbers. Then we only have two rules that we need to apply. If the numbers have the same sign, then we just add them together. If the numbers have different signs, all we need to do is to subtract and then copy the sign of that bigger number. So let's have another example here. We have negative 3 and negative 2. Both numbers have signs on its left side, so all we need to do is to separate them together. Then we have here a negative 3 and a negative 2. We have two like signed numbers, so all we need to do is to add them together. So you have 3 plus 2 is 5, and then just copy the sign of the two numbers, which is negative. Now how about here on our next example? Now in our next example, as you can see here, we have two signs beside each other. Now, before we process this one, let's simplify the two signs first. Now, this parenthesis here, as we all know, this also symbolizes a multiplication sign. So let's recap our multiplication of integers. So if we are going to multiply two like signs, so say for example you have positive times positive, the result will be a positive number. And if we multiply negative and negative, the result is also a positive number. But if we multiply unlike sign, say for example a positive and negative, or both, or vice versa, negative and positive, the result will be negative. Now let's try to simplify this one. Since the parenthesis is a multiplication sign, so we have a negative times negative. Now we all know that if we multiply like signs, the result will be positive. So we have here now negative times negative. This becomes a positive number. Then now we have numbers with signs on its left side. So all we need to do is to separate them together. There. So we now have a negative 3 and a positive 2. So what should we do if we have two numbers with unlike signs again? Subtract them together. So you have 3 minus 2, the result is 1. Then 3 is bigger than 2, and the sign of 3 is negative, therefore we just copy the sign of the biggest number. Let's proceed to our next example. Again, here we have two signs beside each other, separated by a parenthesis, therefore this is a multiplication of sign. So we have positive times negative, the result would be a negative sign. And since 3 does not have a sign on its left side, therefore 3 is a positive number. So what's next? Let's separate them together. So we have positive 3 and negative 2. So we have a two unlike signed number. So all we need to do is to subtract them together. So you have 3 minus 2 equals to 1. And since 3 is bigger than 2 and the sign of 3 is positive, therefore our answer is a positive 1. Next, again, we have two signs here separated by a parenthesis, which is a multiplication. All we need to do is to simplify these two signs. So we need to multiply positive and negative sign. Then we could come up with a negative symbol. or sign. Then since 2 does not have a sign on its left side, therefore 2 is a positive number. So all we need to do is to separate the two numbers. So you have positive 2 and negative 2. We have two unlike signed numbers. So all we need to do is to subtract the two numbers. So you have 2 minus 2. The result is 0. There you go. That's the easiest way to add and subtract integers with unlike signs. So all we need to do is to separate the two numbers, make sure that the two numbers have the sign on its left side, and then if the two numbers have same sign, all we need to do is to add them together and copy the sign of those two numbers. And if the two numbers have different signs, all we need to do is to subtract them together and then copy the sign of the biggest number. Now let's try to have one last example. Let's try to solve this combination of addition and subtraction. So we have here 5 plus 5 minus 2 plus 3 minus 5 minus 6 plus negative 3 minus negative 4. Okay, so first we need to process this two sign here. Since this is a multiplication of sign, all we need to do is to multiply positive and negative. Then we all know that positive times negative is equal to a negative sign. Now what about here? We have a negative times positive. Negative times negative. We all know that multiplying same sign will result to a positive sign. So let's try to write it here. So we have 5 plus 5 minus 2 plus 3 minus 5 minus 6. Then our new sign here will be negative 3. Then here is positive 4. Now from here, as you can see, all the numbers have a sign on its left side, excluding this number. Now since 5 does not have a sign on its left side, therefore this one is a positive number. Now from here, we can process this one based on what we've learned earlier. So my suggestion here, if this will be our problem, we can combine all signs, all numbers with the same sign. So from here, I could say positive 5, then another positive 5, then we have another positive 3. So let's just combine all numbers with the same sign. Another positive 4. So we now have all the positive number. The next, let's just continue with the negative numbers. So you have negative 2, then negative 5, then we have negative 6, and negative 3. Next, let's add all the positive number and all the negative number, because we all know that if the numbers that has same sign, all we need to do is to add them together, right? So we have here 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 4 equals 17. And then since the sign of all these numbers is a positive, then we just write positive here. Next, let's add all the negative numbers here. So you have negative 2, negative 5. So 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 6, that would be 13, plus 3, we have 16. Then the sign of this one will be negative. Then from here, we now have two unlike sign numbers. And like what I said earlier, if the two numbers have this different sign, all we need to do is to subtract the two numbers. So you have 17 minus 16 gives us 1. Since 17 is bigger than 16 and the sign of 17 is positive, then we have here our final answer as positive 1. Or if you want to process this one without groupings, let's try this here. So you have, let's separate all the numbers first. This one, that one. Make sure that the sign of each number is on its left side. There. So you have 5 and 5, both positive, therefore we need to add them together. So you have 5 plus 5, we have a positive 10. Next, positive 10 and negative 2. So you have positive and negative, therefore we need to subtract. 10 minus 2 is 8, and 10 is bigger than 2, and the sign of 10 is positive, therefore the result here is positive 8. Next, positive 8 and positive 3. Both are positive numbers, so you have to add them together. So you have 8 plus 3, you have 11. Then the sign here would be positive. Next, 11 and negative 5. Unlike sign. So we need to subtract them. 11 minus 5 gives you 6. Since 11 is bigger than 5 and the sign of 11 is positive, then we have here positive 6. Next, positive 6 and negative 6. So we have two unlike sign numbers. So all we need to do is to subtract them together. So 6 minus 6 is 0. Next, 0 and negative 3. So all we need to do is just copy the negative 3 here, since this is 0 already. So you have negative 3. Next, negative 3 and 4. We have unlike sign. We have a negative and positive, so we need to subtract. So you have 4 minus 3 is 1. And since 4 is bigger than 3, so we copy the sign of 4, which is positive 1. So we have the same answer as we did in groupings. There you go. That's the easiest way and simplest way to solve addition and subtraction of integers, especially when the two integers or the integers has an unlike sign. Again, all you need to do is to separate the numbers. Make sure that each number has its sign on the left side. I hope you learned something today, and I hope this video helps you in solving integers. Thank you, and see you on our next online lesson.